You're listening to the Major Pod Network, the only place where your favorite toy store, bar, arcade, and arena are all on the same block. Scratch that major itch.
Today on the Game Marks podcast, we play the classic WWF Super WrestleMania. Will we play it forever? Woo! Or future endeavor?
You're fired!
All of this, plus gaming news, GMP64 and Clash at the Feast. Plug in and put on those nostalgia goggles because this week's Game Marks podcast starts now. And now, the Game Marks. Welcome to the Game Marks podcast presented by the Major Pod Network. I'm the man they call Johnny Clash.
And I am the man who needs a nickname this week, but you know what? We're going to call him Manager. Actually, John, I'm going to be 1/3 of the new triple threat. George Feis.
I like it. For those who don't know, go watch FWF Live. But as always, we love to hear from you guys. So please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and make sure to subscribe and rate this podcast wherever you choose to listen, and join the conversation on social media at Game Marks Pod and on Patreon at patreon.com/GameMarksPod. Georgie boy, you already said it. We are the new triple threat. If for those who didn't watch FWF Live, I'm not going to spoil anything today because it is still available for a few more days, but go check it out. Honorary member of the Game Marks podcast, the franchise, Shane Douglas. That's all we need to say.
You want to talk about an out-of-body experience. That was something surreal.
Yeah, the pictures tell it all, where your face is just glazed over with happiness. It was cute.
I mean, it was hard to hide. Live some definitely check off some bucket list items there, and live my dream of being a wrestler.
Yeah, we'll talk a bit more about it next week when it's no longer available and spoilers don't really matter anymore. But let's follow up from last week a little bit. We played WWF Road to WrestleMania for the Game Boy Advance. We both played it forever. How you feeling?
Sticking with it. Had a good time playing it. Still enjoyed it. Went back and played it again later on in the week after we were recording, and just good times all around. I enjoyed it. We had a couple of listeners reach out, and they said that they appreciate the insight into a Game Boy Advance game that they maybe not have played, and once you get past the controls, kind of works out. Pretty good game.
Yeah, so every week when I post like our graphics and stuff, I do like the motion one where the game's playing behind and I do a little sound clip. And for that one, like I just kind of let the game play and I screen recorded it so I could put it in the background, because I don't want to take stuff off YouTube. I want our own stuff. And as soon as I was done like grabbing that clip, like I was like, oh well, while I'm in here, I think I'm gonna play a little more. And I started doing a Royal Rumble. I was like, this is actually a lot of fun. I love this game.
Yeah, it was a good time. Good time.
Now, what's new on our brand new Patreon page, Georgie? Last week was our first full week, so we got loads of content to talk about. Clash and Burn made its return. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but I did. I
mean, Clash and Burn's great, but also you released the first inaugural episode of our new series, Future Endeavored, where you played through WCW NWO World Tour.
That's right. And next week, I believe you're going to be playing the same game because we are going in order. And sometimes we both, the double futures, we're both going to be playing the same game. They're not going to be released the same week. We're going to kind of alternate. And so you can get different perspectives, get our different thoughts on the games. I explained why I thought that this game needed a future endeavor. Listen, it's not a bad game. I had fun playing it, but we explain why in Patreon. So check that out at patreon.com/GameMarksPod.
But John, talking about our streamer spotlight now for the month of April, it is my good friend Micropony. And if you ever come and hang out on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/GameMarksPod, on a Wednesday, you will definitely see me and my buddies Dom and Micropony dropping into Verdansk and trying to get some dubs. He is also, like we mentioned last week, new to the PC gaming world. So it's kind of fun to watch all of these new experiences just live out on his Twitch channel. It's fun to watch someone experience, the entire Steam library all at once for the first time.
I definitely know that feeling because that's kind of the same thing I'm going through. But speaking of your stream, this week I kind of hijacked your stream. I pulled an old NWO on it, and I was sitting front row in the crowd, and I hopped the guardrail. And me and you, we played Fortnite.
The run-in from Johnny Clash.
Yeah, I believe it was the first time you played Fortnite in a year. For me, it was 2 years, and somehow we still got a second place out of it. I don't know. Maybe we're just too old for it, and these kids just don't know what they're doing anymore. But
I don't know. My shot in Fortnite's unmatched. I still got the pretty good shot in that game. Building was never my strong suit, but
yeah. So we're a good duo because I could build, you could shoot, but. Then we dropped into Verdansk ourselves, and one of my buddies joined. It was a good time. So tune in every Wednesday. George likes to do his little streams with Micropony, Dom Odinson, but this week, I took over if you want to go watch that back.
I was going to say, you never know who's going to show up.
But let's talk about GMP64 Episode 10, because we are only like 2.5 weeks away from Survivor Series on Twitch, and we are setting up some big things here. We might just have crowned a new champion.
Now, I'm making a little announcement here. There is going to be a big announcement on our Twitch channel during the Survivor Series pay-per-view for GMP64. I'm not going to give you anything else but that. If you like GMP64, you like the Game Marks podcast, you like what we do on the pay-per-views, well, there may be a little something extra happening. We're going to make that announcement at Survivor Series.
And for those who don't know, because GMP64 is still kind of new. We're only 10 episodes, 2 pay-per-views in. Check out GameMarksPod.com/GMP64, and we lay out all the rules. We lay out the rosters. It pretty much tells you what we are doing exactly, so you can catch up. All the episodes are there, right there on YouTube. Pay-per-views, Twitch exclusive. They do go onto the Patreon after that once they disappear. So GMP64, I mean, we always say it. We say it every week. One of the most fun things we get to do on this podcast, mainly because every week we get to play No Mercy against each other.
And, full transparency here, we realize that the first couple of episodes, or the last couple of episodes, we'll say, have been running a little longer than anticipated.
We get a little too No Mercy happy sometimes.
So we are now working to make those shorter and a little bit more easy digest, if you will.
Snackable.
Yeah, snackable is a good word. Just so that there's something you can put on in the background. You're not blowing 45 minutes or an hour watching, sometimes maybe even longer.
Yeah, you hear our voices enough.
Yeah. But John, I think it's time for us to hop on over to a little bit of gaming news. What do you say?
Let's go!
Are you looking to get a better grip on life? How about your video games? Well, VGF Gamers are the largest silicone gaming brand in the USA. They have a variety of different and unique skins for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One controllers and consoles. Check out their products at VGFgamers.com and use code GameMarks to receive 15% off your order at checkout. That's GAMEMARKS at checkout. VGF Gamers. Better grip, better style.
A new rumor suggests that Nintendo and Xbox will make an announcement later this year. In the Game Mess video from Jeff Grubb, Grubb discusses a Phil Spencer photo with many interesting items on the shelf in the background, including a Nintendo Switch. In the video, Grubb states that everything on Phil's shelf meant something incoming. Readers should take that with a grain of salt, but it will be interesting to see if the two companies are indeed planning something big. As a part of this weekend's previous announced fan preview event, developer Relic Entertainment and World's Edge revealed the first look at the new gameplay for the upcoming game, Age of Empires 4. Considering how little had been revealed about the title since it was first announced years ago, this marks the first major drop of information about the game, including the reveal of new civilizations and campaigns. Additionally, the game's Norman campaign was also revealed, which is apparently just one of the 4 different campaigns that will be available at launch. Last weekend, WrestleMania featured the debut of the first teaser trailer for the next entry in the WWE 2K game series, which will be WWE 2K22. The new game debuted with a teaser that featured WWE legend Rey Mysterio taking on everyone's favorite Swiss Superman Cesaro, and it shows off the improved animation and graphics for the game. It was a very brief teaser and didn't show the whole match, so the fans have a lot of questions, but overall the feeling seemed to be one of hopefulness and cautious optimism on social media. Will this game hit harder? I guess that remains to be seen. And that's all the gaming news we have this week. Check back next week. So, WWE 2K22. Obviously, 2K20, we followed the progress of the game from start to finish and then watched it collapse. So, I guess we'll do the same with this one and see what happens.
All right, so it's gaming news, but it's like gaming adjacent news. The Mortal Kombat series coming to HBO Max.
Ooh.
You gonna watch it? You gonna skip it? I don't know where Mortal Kombat lays on where's that land on your radar of
You see, I like Mortal Kombat. I'm just not like a diehard Mortal Kombat. Like, I do like it. I like the old Sega games. I'm not like, oh my god, Mortal Kombat. But I will watch it because I love HBO Max. It's probably my go-to right now for TV shows because I think they have like the best selection. And, you know, Netflix, sometimes you get those like stupid, like Hallmarky shows and you don't know until you're like deep in it, like, oh, this is what happens. But HBO has like the real stuff, and I haven't been let down by a series yet. So I'll check it out. I need like my show to watch during the day because, you know, me and the wife do our shows at night, but I need my show during the day. And if you listen to Clash and Burn this week, Falcon and the Winter Soldier is just not cutting it for me. Well,
now you know Johnny's going to be sitting there watching Mortal Kombat during the day and Bridgerton at night. So.
She already finished that one.
All right, John, but I think it's time for us to hop on over to that wonderful segment, Question of the Week. Johnny, when I say gamer food, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh, Mountain Dew Code Red and Taco Bell.
Exactly. For far too long, there's been this stigma about people who play video games that we're all out of shape and overweight. That's why we are proud to be partnering with Eat Right to bring fresh, high-quality, chef-prepared meals right to our listeners.
Eat Right is veteran-owned and offers delicious conventional keto and plant-based meal delivery directly to your door. Right now, you can use our code GameMarks to get 60% off your first order.
If you want to feel right, you better eat right.
You know, George, every morning me and you talk every day, obviously. Our minds are always going. We're always trying to put out more content or expand our business, but
we're also friends. We talk because we're friends.
Yeah, of course. But I mean, there's some friends I don't talk to every single day. But
that's true.
The text that I look forward to you sending me in the morning is always, John, bro, chocolate chip pancake waffles or whatever it may be. And this morning it was, I believe,
what is a chocolate chip pancake waffle?
I'm just saying.
How is it both?
Come here, I'll show you.
It's a pancake and a waffle.
Anyway, this morning I believe it was s'mores waffles, and oh baby, s'mores waffles. I've been indulging in the breakfast quesadillas, the breakfast tacos. See, I'm a big breakfast guy. It is my favorite meal of the day, so that I look forward to it every single morning.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Eat Right is that you can pick the plan that matches for you. I mean, you heard it in that little ad roll that we did there, but it's true. What we say in that ad is it's the truth. You can get keto, conventional, plant-based stuff, and they're all along the same lines. You're not missing out on quality if you do one or the other. They work with any kind of dietary or allergy needs, and the food is just delicious.
It's
like
good.
I the best sell that I can say is if you've ever considered doing a meal prep service, but you've never pulled the trigger on it because you were worried about the quality or you were worried about, if it would be, too small of a portion, try Eat Right. it's 60% off. It ends up it's you'll spend more eating out on a Friday night, and you'll get significantly more food that is the same chef prepared quality.
And I think I'm actually about to switch mine to keto because, sometimes gotta lose. I saw the FWF pictures. I gotta lose some in the midsection, so I think I'm gonna cut some carbs for a little bit. But that's the good part. You could change it at any time as well. But sign up right now. Use the hashtag GamerGains, and we will send you a gym bag for free. And also, you will receive 60% off by using the code GameMarks. But George, question of the week. Take us through.
So the question of the week is a weekly segment where you submit your question. And if we pick your question to read in the episode, you get a Game Marks podcast prize pack. Now, last week was a very interesting question. It was, which horror icons would you like to see in a wrestling video game? Johnny and I both gave our answers, but answers from you, the listener. Old Man Vices says, Jason is too easy. I want a Chucky versus Hornswoggle Boiler Room match, which goes kind of along the same lines as what I said last week. So
Why does everyone have it out for poor Dylan?
I don't think that's I think that's a great match.
All right, as long as there's no top ropes he has to climb. Now, Matty G 32991 says he just wants Jason versus The Undertaker. Yeah, we said Jason was I think the most typical answer. And,
yeah.
Maybe one day we're going to get some of these actually in wrestling video games, like kind of that one year that 2K put Terminator in the game as a pre-order DLC. Maybe we will get some of these guys.
You get cameos like that in, we talked about it earlier in Mortal Kombat games.
That's right.
Like Jason, Freddy, Leatherface, RoboCop, Terminator, all these cameos. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for these people to pop up in a fighting video game.
Yeah, we could literally have whatever. The world is our oyster, as I like to say. Now, this week's question comes from Instagram at WildsMF. Now, they say, with all the praise Retromania Wrestling has been getting, and rightfully so, do you think we might get a more straightforward wrestling game from WWE, like WrestleMania or Raw from the SNES or Genesis? Now, this is something I think we've talked about many times before, but I'm kind of open to the debate here. I want to see what other people think. I believe this could open that door to more... see, when WWE puts out these type of games, they end up being paywalled mobile games, and I hate that because Mayhem is cool, but I don't want to just be stuck with The Miz and Dolph Ziggler.
I don't want it.
Yeah,
I don't want it.
Kevin Nash. I have to buy him for $9.99.
This is a perfect foundation where I'm going to use Battlegrounds as the example. Battlegrounds comes out. It's not the full WWE video game experience. The roster is big to start out with. Lots of characters. If you play it with a friend online or whatever, big story mode. The game is worth the price of admission. But there are so many wrestlers being released as DLC. It's it's mind blowing. It puts your head in the spin cycle. There's so much content for this game constantly being released. It feels like every week or every month almost feels like with every pay-per-view monthly. They're oh, by the way, brand new DLC pack,
which is cool, but how much money are you going to put into this game that you already spent all this money on?
That's the thing. I understand if they're going to do costumes and stuff, that makes sense. You're a really big fan of The Undertaker. You want every incarnation of The Undertaker, and they release that skin pack.
And we know there's a lot.
Cool. Great. Get that skin pack in there, charge $10, $15, $20, whatever. But for those super fans of that one character, that's cool. But I do not think that there should be any kind of remastered version of WWF WrestleMania strictly for that reason of exactly the point that you brought up. It'll just be something where it's just put behind a paywall. It'll be
But what if it's
diminished? Not? It'll be diminished to a mobile game. I just don't see it. There's just no way that WWE would do something like that.
So WWE might not do something like that now, but AEW is putting out a game that they're trying to make, like, you could just grab it and you could pick it up and you could just go, kind of like No Mercy was. Once you played one of these, you played all of them. And I think that's not exactly a straightforward, like, arcade wrestling game, but it's close. And maybe they're going to give us something like that. Maybe, like, why not just give us 8 guys in a game, duke it out? I mean, shit, those guys will get paid more for being in the game since there's only 8 of them. Why not? And
here's what I'm gonna put a lot of pressure on AEW right now. I'm
sure they're quivering.
In my personal opinion, and I'm saying this knowing that I may sway some other people's views in regards to this, but I really want the AEW game to be great and live up to the hype for, I mean, selfishly, because I want it to be a good game and I want to, like, spend my money and enjoy my investment in the game. But if it lives up to how they're promoting it and how they're marketing it, where it's, you know, it's going to be a callback to those No Mercy, AKI, THQ games. If it works, man, is that such a wrench in the system that WWE has been using for their games for the last couple of years, where everything is so hyper realistic and overcomplicated. I almost want the AEW game to succeed more so that it forces WWE to change and maybe reconsider how they make their games. Because honestly, AEW game does well in that retro, I don't know, there needs to be a term like a retro, it's like a oxymoron, but it's like that retro modern style where, like, the graphics are modern and, like, beautifully 3D rendered models, but the controls are a more retro style. You know, maybe that does open the window for AEW to then make, like you said, a classic 16-bit side scroll wrestling game a la Royal Rumble. Like, and if they do that and then that succeeds, well, then it's like, all right, it's kind of your move, WWE. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I agree with that. But to go back to the question, I want this. Unfortunately, the day and age we're in, like, even Retromania is going to have DLC. And how long did that take to actually come out? It's still coming out on certain consoles. I just don't see it not being a mobile game. Like, if they release WWE WrestleMania, the arcade game with 8 guys on the roster, simple buttons, simple controls, quick games, it's probably going to be a mobile game, but for damn sure I'm going to have it on my phone.
Yeah, I'm saying I want it as long as it's not on a mobile game. I'll give any game a shot. I have no, if this podcast has shown me anything, it's that, you can't judge a game by its appearance, because some of the worst looking games that we've played have controlled amazingly, and
or
it's made
opposite
all the difference.
TNA wrestling,
or the opposite. But I'm okay with it. I would like to see it as long as it's not a mobile game.
All right. I like that. Now, Wilds MF, send us a DM on social media and claim your prize. But George, it's WrestleMania season. WrestleMania happened both nights this weekend. We're still rolling. We're going to end it right here. Are you ready to take the deep dive? Are you ready to take that plunge?
Oh, I'm at the edge of the diving board and I'm cannonballing in.
Let's go.
Are you sick of drinking the same old boring coffee with the same old boring flavors? Well, Marks, it's time for you to check out Bones Coffee Company. Bones Coffee isn't just a drink that wakes you up in the morning. It's a full flavor experience. Small batch roasts that are made to order so that every order is guaranteed to be fresh. Unbelievable, all-natural flavors in every single bag. Some of our favorites are blueberry, paradise pie, and chocolate raspberry. But if you're not into the flavored coffees, they've got their single origin series featuring coffee beans from the greatest coffee growing regions in the world. Visit GameMarksPod.com/coffee to place your order and try the world's freshest small batch coffee. All right, John. Big coffee news here. New flavor alert.
With a coffee dirt sheet.
Coffee dirt sheet. Breaking news here. There is now a dark chocolate roast.
That's not the best part, though.
It is called Army of Dark Chocolate. And the art to this... Okay, if you don't drink coffee, you don't like coffee, you've never had a cup of coffee in your life, but you appreciate clever artwork, clever marketing, clever designs to packaging, just go and look at all the covers to the Bones Coffee packaging. They're
Beautiful.
so great. So great. But Army of Dark Chocolate is a Army of Darkness, Evil Dead themed coffee, and it's amazing. It's the best coffee cover I've ever seen.
That's right. And order now. Check it out at gamemarkspod.com/coffee. Ooh, my bones. Speaking of bones, my bones are chilling. This game really takes me back, George. What do you got for me?
All right, so WWF Super WrestleMania, released February 12th, 1992, for the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and the Mega Drive. Developed by Sculptured Software, published by Acclaim, and this is the first WWF game to be on both the Sega and the Super Nintendo.
This is a big one. This started kind of like a whole series of games, which we've played most of them so far on, if not all of them, on this podcast. And this just...
I think this may have been the last one.
I think so. It says Raw, there's Royal Rumble. No, we have one more, George. We have European Rampage Tour.
Ah, yes.
I think that's the last one in this series that we haven't played yet. But also, in 1992 was a big year for wrestling games because we also got Thunder Pro Wrestling Retsuden. Check it out in the archives. Fire Pro Wrestling 3 Legend Bout for the PC. Super Fire Pro Wrestling 2 for the Super Famicom. WWF Superstars 2 for the Game Boy. WWF European Rampage Tour, as we just mentioned, for the Amiga and the PC and a bunch of others. And WWF WrestleMania Steel Cage Challenge also in the archives. Big year, 1992. How old were you? I was only 4.
Some stiff competition here.
Now, I mentioned, I think last week and a few other times, I've mentioned it live on stream. This was the first wrestling game I ever remember playing. My cousins had it, and I looked forward to going to their house. We either played Mario or we played this. So I must have played this years later when I was a little bit older, because I wasn't playing this when I was 4 years old. So for us, we thought Earthquake and Typhoon were the funniest characters because they were just these big guys named Earthquake and Typhoon. And that's all we played at. We Survivor Series matches over and over again. We would just do Hawk and Animal, Earthquake and Typhoon, and just take out the rest of the roster.
So you're 4. I'm 6 when this game comes out. I don't think I played this one. I'm pretty sure my first game was either Raw or Royal Rumble.
Okay.
So I'm not quite there yet with wrestling here. I'm aware of it. I don't think I'm playing the wrestling video games yet.
No, I would say it was probably like 96, 97. I was actually playing this game, but it was the first game I did play. So something there, it holds that like special place for me, so I'm happy we're covering it. Happy we got to play it this week.
Yeah, and very similar to the other games in this series, you've got a couple of match types. So you've got your one-on-one, you got a tag team, you have your 4-on-4 Survivor Series style. Now, the difference between the SNES and the Genesis version is that the Genesis version also has a WWF Championship mode where you pick your wrestler and you defeat all the other wrestlers in the game in a series of one-on-one matches to be crowned the new WWF champion.
Now, speaking of the WWF Championship, I'm going to jump the gun here and talk about the intro screen because it is so cool. Usually we talk about this in the art style, but the opening title screen, you get Hulk Hogan with the Super WrestleMania logo, but once you're in the menu screen, it is the big white winged eagle belt that Ultimate Warrior held, the white leather strap. It is so nice. It's so cool. It's such a nice touch that they added to this game. It's just like visually pretty. And now coming off of a Nintendo, you now have Super Nintendo. You're getting your first WWF game. You're not getting those crappy little Bret Hart icons that we talked about in the Bret Hart episode, you're getting full-on pictures now of the wrestlers in the menu. I think that's pretty cool. This is kind of like a new era of video games.
Yeah, and you also see them during the ring announcements too. So it's there's a lot of firsts that happen.
Authenticity.
Yeah. So I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here. If you've listened to the Royal Rumble or the Raw or the Rage in the Cage episode, gameplay is exactly the same. You get a kick, you get a punch, you get a running drop kick. From your tie-ups is all, you hit triangle, you're in your tie-up. From there, you can do a suplex, body slam, headbutt. You can Irish whip into a clothesline or a drop kick. You can go off the top and hit elbows or headbutts or anything of the sort. The one glaring issue between the Sega and the Nintendo version is that the Super Nintendo doesn't have finishers.
Yeah, so the Genesis version also has signature moves for each wrestler, but you could do them kind of anytime during the match. But instead, the SNES version was blessed with a bit of a larger roster, so it has 10 rather than 8 superstars. So the Genesis version, you're getting signature moves, and you're getting that WWF Championship mode, where the Super Nintendo, you're just getting a bigger roster. I mean, what is the WWF Championship mode back in the day? It's probably what you're looking for in a game, but also you're getting a better roster with SNES. I won't say better, you're getting a bigger roster with the Super Nintendo, but there are some names in the Genesis version that would make me go to that version.
I'm trying to think, is this would actually be a very interesting question of the week. What would make you sway more on buying a game? A larger roster on one console, or a slightly smaller roster but more gameplay modes? What's more important to you?
That's the thing, though. When we get into the roster, there's at least 2 names and a debut that kind of would sway me towards going towards the smaller roster but the more game modes.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have an answer. I guess it depends on the era of WWF, WWE.
Also crazy how they would split this roster, because there's some big names on both sides here that you don't get in both games that you should. And
I don't think they broke up any tag teams.
No, but that's very disappointing. So Let's touch on this one fact here before we get into the actual roster, and that's the MIDI entrance music, which is beautiful. When you're on the menu select screen, which it just side scrolls and you pick on the guy's face, and once you hold, you hover the controller there, it will start playing these beautiful MIDI songs of their entrance music. I noticed Hogan's, it doesn't start with I am a real...
yeah.
As soon as you go in, it goes, when it comes crashing. It's cool. It's beautiful. I love it. I know these 8-bit MIDI, whatever you want to call them, songs or chiptune, they're the way to your heart.
It's just, I don't know. There's just something about it. I just love the nostalgia factor of, even people nowadays go and make these 8-bit versions of the current,
well, oh
my God.
You sent me the Spotify list of AEW put out a whole 8-bit album.
Yeah, so AEW released an entire Spotify album, and there's, some absolute 8-bit bangers on there. Like Cody's theme is so good. Pox is great. Miro's on there. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
So cool.
It's actually funny. Every time I shuffle through my Apple Music library, Thunder Rosa's 8-bit song is always in the top 5. I'm I don't play this. Why is this always number 5 on the shuffle?
I've been logging into your account and slowly listening to that song all the time because I just like that song. It's on its own.
Now it's grown on me.
So great. But John, what do you say we hop into this roster?
All right, but before we do, let's hear a word from our sponsors.
All right, so your roster for WWF Super WrestleMania is Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, and Ted DiBiase are shared between the Genesis and SNES versions. Now, your Genesis exclusives are the Ultimate Warrior, Shawn Michaels, IRS, Papa Shango, and the British Bulldog. And your SNES exclusives are Jake Roberts, The Undertaker, Sid Justice, The Road Warriors, Earthquake, and Typhoon.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about here. I think if the Genesis version, I would want Warrior and Shawn Michaels, and British Bulldog, Papa Shango. Like, this is just cool roster. IRS, whatever. Like, that's take it or leave it. But then on the SNES, I would want The Undertaker and the Road Warriors. So it's like, which one do you go with here? Why is Ted DiBiase in both? I feel like Undertaker should be in both.
Well, Undertaker
This is the Undertaker's, like, debut year.
I would say Undertaker 92,
that
it's not, he's not the Undertaker that we know.
Right.
I mean, he could have completely flopped, and that could have been the end of the Undertaker after like a year or two. There's no really telling about if I'm gonna make it where it's people that should be on both, it's Hogan and Savage, obviously, and I guess the debate could be made that
Warrior.
Maybe I would say maybe you do Warrior or maybe you do Ted DiBiase, because they're I mean, $1 Million Man's huge at this time.
Yeah, the more I think about it, Undertaker and Shawn are relatively new here. So,
or I mean, Jake too. I feel like could be the argument could be made in 92. Like that third slot of DiBiase could be Warrior, could be Jake.
Here's a question: why did everyone on this roster look like they were 47 in 1992?
I'm gonna just throw that up to
great.
the graphics at the time.
No, they just all actually looked like they were like 47.
No. I'm just gonna, because it's like, you're still rendering these headshots in like a pixel-esque form. And I'm assuming it makes things look a little rougher.
All right. Well, I've watched WWF tape and they all look 47. So it's a new era.
Trying to be nice here.
All right. Let's get into the character models and the art style here, because this game is visually really nice. Like, we know what it's like from the Raw and the Royal Rumbles and all of those. It's all very similar. This is the first one, and like you always say, the crowd bears honestly, hang on. Before we get into the crowd, they all look exactly the same, and I'm going to say they all look like Jay Leno.
They all look like... Hold on a second here.
They're all Jay Leno in different color shirts.
But not even that many different color shirts.
And here's the thing. There's actually a child with the same face as the rest of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's stuff of nightmares.
That's creepy, right?
That is the stuff of nightmares.
However, as you always say, if the crowd looks like the character models, it's a good crowd, and this is a good crowd because it's there. It's not overbearing. It's got the kind of shadow over it, so it's not taking over the screen. The health bars are definitely not taking over the screen. They're kind of separated. They're very small.
I mean,
what else do you need here?
The only thing that kind of bothers me here, and I don't know why, Warrior's face paint just looks rough.
Yeah, it's kind of like someone just spilled ketchup all over his face.
It's just, there's just like a couple of more pixels of different color there would have made all the difference. This looks like, I don't know, it looks like he's got like a mask on. Almost looks like it's Kane.
Yeah, so that's the difference here. The Jay Leno crowd is Sega Genesis, where
Jay Leno crowd.
where your health bars are kind of in the top and the bottom corners. They're kind of separated. Where now you go to the SNES, the crowd is a little darker. You could tell it's kind of the same face, but now it's darkened in the background. It's a little less prominent. I actually like this one better, and your health bars are up top, separated on the same line. Same axis, as you will.
Yeah, I very much prefer the SNES treatment of the ring and the health bars. I think just I'm trying to be fair with these sprites.
They're not bad.
mean, I would say for the most part, they're good. Hogan looks like Hogan. DiBiase looks like DiBiase. I think the only one that's really like glaringly standing out as annoying to me is Warrior. But I just think that's because he looks like he's wearing a Kane mask.
That's fair. I think for me, it's Earthquake and Typhoon because it's kind of like the Yokozuna effect we've talked about. He's just got chicken legs and a big belly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird. I think Ted DiBiase and Hogan are two of the best looking in the game because they're kind of foolproof. You can't really screw them up. Like Hogan's Hogan, like yellow hair, big mustache, like that's it, yellow trunks. And DiBiase is kind of just like a straightforward looking wrestler from the side that in 1992, you throw black trunks and that, I don't even know what you call that hairstyle on a Sprite. He's there.
I mean, honestly, we've seen games where they've kind of screwed up the appearance of our beloved Hulk Hogan.
So also in the background, you see Bobby Heenan and Vince McMahon doing their announcing. Unfortunately, we don't have any like real announcing of this era. So when Mean Gene makes his introductions, you see the two character icons and a speech bubble introducing the wrestlers, which is really cool. And I mentioned when we were playing that the way that this ring is situated, how it has like dimension to it, I really like that. Because some rings, like, I guess like pro wrestling for NES, like it's kind of just straight up and down. There's no dimension to it. So this one looks like you're actually looking down at a hard cam in a wrestling ring. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is a good camera angle. It definitely helps with the immersion of the, of feeling like you're in the crowd watching a match. It looks nice. The treatment of it as well. There's nothing that's like overly distracting. There's even like a little bit more of a darker shadow on the WWF logo in the ring, which is nice because it's not just like, this is the bright plastered logo of the company. Like there's actually some depth and darkness applied to it, which helps. It gives the effect, but it's not distracting.
There's some like N64 games where that logo in the middle, no matter what, if it was a New Japan game or what, it's just so big and distracting and overbearing. This is very subtle. Like WWF didn't have this in the middle of the ring, and I'm glad because I absolutely hate it. I think it is very distracting, and I don't know. I think this is just good. This is the way it should be. It's just in the background, and you don't have to think about it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, John. We've talked about the roster. Talked about the music, we've talked about the in-game action, but let's talk about the first thing you see when you're buying a video game. Let's talk about the cover for both of these versions. So we're going to start with the Super Nintendo. Now, I don't really know where to start with this one. I almost think like that crowd shot needs to be darker.
Yeah, it's also 1992, so I understand they're showing the big WrestleMania crowd.
It's just, I feel like it's a little distracting, and maybe like something's not big enough. Like maybe like the logo's not big enough.
Yeah, I get that, but they wanted to get the superstars on the screen. So let's go through that. We have the Super WrestleMania logo, which is the classic WrestleMania logo. Now we have Hogan, big, ripping his shirt, not like in WCW Thunder. You could actually tell it's Hogan ripping his shirt. But then you have a couple screens. You have Jake Roberts with Damien. You have Macho Man. You have the Road Warriors, and you have Sid Justice. Now, let's go to the back, because the Super WrestleMania logo is huge, and Hogan and Macho Man's names are prominent up top, and then it has the rest of the roster underneath it. Now, it says, charge down to ringside with WWF Super WrestleMania. Never before have the WWF superstars like Hulk Hogan, Sid Justice, The Undertaker, Jake the Snake look so real. They're bigger, mightier, and tougher than ever before. You're in command of power slams that rock the arena, clotheslines that clobber, and atomic suplexes that flatten your foe into submission. You've got the skill and the bone-crunching moves, but do you have the guts to become the next WWF champion? Which is actually funny, because WWF Championship mode is not in this Super Nintendo version that we're looking at. Now, we got some screenshots on the right saying featuring 10 WWF superstars, singles and tag team competition, which shows someone doing, I believe that's Hogan, doing an elbow drop off the top rope onto a standing opponent, and we know if you play the game that actually doesn't work, but I guess it's a cool screenshot, right? In and out of the ring action and 4-on-4 Survivor Series mayhem, and then you have the actual screen selection images from the game, which it says actual game selection screen. So I guess they're putting over the fact that this is no longer an NES game and we have real pictures here.
Yeah, and you know what? At the time, it's a huge selling point. There are so many things nowadays that we get in games that we take for granted, 1992, that, were not super common practice. It was incredibly hard and took up a lot of space to get these actual photos. But now, hopping over to the Genesis version, similar treatment. Hogan big on the cover, but this to me feels a little bit easier to read. The background's a little darker. The Super WrestleMania logo is much bigger. Again, Hogan, huge on the front.
Well, it's vertical,
this
not
time,
horizontal, so there's a little more space to make it pretty, per se.
Yeah. And then, again, shots of the wrestlers. You have Ted DiBiase, Papa Shango, Macho Man, and Ultimate Warrior. John, we talk about this a lot, but on both covers, on the front cover, you get a little bit, not necessarily hard squares. You got a little bit of a playfulness to the, but then on the back cover, it's just squares. Everything's in squares.
Back cover's weird.
Back cover for the Genesis one is significantly different. It appears to be mostly the same text. So it says charge down to ringside. Never before have the WWF superstars looked so real. They're bigger, mightier, and tougher than ever before. Whether it's one-on-one, tag team, grueling 4-on-4 Survivor Series, or the ultimate tournament match, you're in command of special moves, all in caps, that give you the power to rock the ring. You've got the skills and the bone-crunching moves, but do you have the guts to become the next WWF champion? Now, this actually makes sense here because it talks about the actual features of the game. And it shows, I thought that this was kind of cool. It shows the signature moves that you can do. So you have, you see a screenshot of Hogan's leg drop, Papa Shango's shoulder breaker, flying elbow drop from Macho Man, flying clothesline from the Warrior, the side suplex from Shawn Michaels, $1 Million Dream from Ted DiBiase, the write-off from IRS, and the running power slam from British Bulldog.
Love it.
But also has two other screenshots. It says singles, tag team, Survivor Series, and tournament matches with what looks like Hogan jumping off the top rope, hitting.
Yep, same elbow drop.
Yep, and you got in and out of the ring action where you've got Macho Man delivering a picture perfect drop kick to IRS on the outside.
Now, on the back of the SNES cover, it says actual game selection screens, like we mentioned, with the actual images of the wrestlers. Now, this one instead says all wrestlers' likenesses above are actual game screens, which is a little odd, because next to each move, it does have the game screen of the wrestler. But, what a weird way to phrase that and put it on the back of a game.
I would say phrasing is weird, but I understand what they're trying to say, there's no
we're not going to deceive you this time.
or anything like that. There's nothing weird about it. So yeah. I get where they're going here. But John, we've talked about a lot of different things for Super WrestleMania, but I have one question for you. Did you know? Did you know WWF Super WrestleMania is the British Bulldogs video game debut?
Did you know WWF Super WrestleMania was featured on the cover of Nintendo Power Volume 35 in April of 1992?
Did you know this game goes on eBay for about $12 loose, $15 to $25 in box, and a whopping $285 brand new?
Now let's talk about Nintendo Power for a bit, because this is a pretty well-known magazine. I've definitely read my share growing up. What about you?
I definitely was known to pick up an episode from the stationery store up the block once or twice.
Yeah. But this one features Hogan giving Earthquake a big Hogan leg drop while holding a Super Nintendo controller in his hand. This is really cool. We could
not just any Super Nintendo controller. It is a glowing
Super
maybe,
Nintendo. It looks a little
controller.
Wet, maybe. I don't know. Hogan's also looking like
Hogan must glow.
Hogan's also got sweat all over him. I don't know. It says WWF Super WrestleMania High Impact Superstar Action. Now, magazines back then, this is pretty straightforward. Magazines now, you're getting like a million different things on the cover, like also included blah 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 and blah 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 and blah 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 and blah blah blah. This one's just Hogan looking like a really good screenshot. Honestly, they should maybe have had the game on the cover, but if you're going to sell a WWF game in 1992, putting Hogan big, that'll normally do it. And it was cool that it was cool. I read through some of this, and it also includes games like The Addams Family, Captain America and the Avengers, TMNT 3, The Manhattan Project, the debut of Yoshi. Oh, I kind of miss the magazine era. I was in Walgreens the other day, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to look at the magazines, because there's always something I would like normally just pick up just to have. Like when Kobe died, I picked up some of those like special editions of like the LA Times and all that. There's really nothing these days. Like it's like you don't see PWI anymore in like every store. There's no like WWE magazine out there.
Everything's digital.
I used to definitely grab a Raw magazine every once in a while. You have all the contents in your screen now, which is cool. Like you could literally look up anything and find anything. But I miss flipping through the pages, like seeing those big pictures, and it's just something about it. Kids will never know these days.
Johnny misses the picture books.
I miss my damn magazines.
Oh,
but
man.
George, our favorite part of any game, there's actually cheats here that you can dig up using a Game Genie, and they're pretty straightforward. There's nothing crazy. It's kind of just what damage you do. Like, you could take away damage from a drop kick. You could take away damage from an elbow drop. So if the player hits them, they just don't do any damage. And then there's also ones where you could start the game with a certain amount of health. So you could have your opponent start the game with half health, 3/4, low health, which I don't really find the fun in because these are quick games anyway. But I guess back in the day in 1992, kids wanted to win this pretty quickly.
Yeah, I definitely understand the use of Game Shark right there, especially if especially if it wasn't like a game that you were super great at. I know games that I had a hard time with, I definitely would utilize a Game Shark or a Game Genie to help me get through. Because if I liked the game but I just wasn't very good at it.
Yeah. But George, you're looking a little tense here. You had a rough match at FWF Live.
Yeah, it was hard. I pretty much carried the whole team.
I think you tweaked your shoulder hitting the mat cheering for me. So why don't you sit back? I'm going to take you through some ratings and reviews.
Oh, thank you.
So, 1992, don't have much here, except we have some user ratings from our good friends over at Game FAQ. So, for the Super Nintendo, the user rating is about a fair with a 3 out of 5 stars. That's out of 173 ratings. The difficulty is a 3 out of 5 stars as well, which is easy, just right. And the most time playing, the length is about 7 hours. Now, when we go over to Genesis, it's pretty much the same. Now, it's a 3 out of 5 out of 74 ratings. And the difficulty also is 3 out of 5, just right, with 5 hours of gameplay clocked by these people reviewing the game. So, overall, a fairly decent score for this game. Now, it's hard to... I hate when we have an old game and I can't pick apart like all the ratings and reviews because they're very hard to find. Like you have to actually like dig and search, and you don't know where to look because they're old games, and a lot of these places are defunct now and they're not online. So the Game FAQ user ratings are the closest we're going to get, but you have to take them with a grain of salt because they're people doing the same review we're doing, because this could have been rated yesterday, not in 1992.
Yeah.
So it's just a little something. I don't really count it, but something to share.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like game FAQs for our generation is like, everyone, if you played video games and you had a computer back in the day, you knew what game FAQs was.
Yeah, I still use it.
Oh, yeah.
But with that, George, those are the ratings from the Game FAQ users. But what do you say we talk about the most important rating of them all, which is our rating? Because it's time to rate the games.
The game!
All right, John. Stealing this one from you this week. WWF Super WrestleMania. Are you going to play it forever or future endeavor?
You're fired!
So it's tough. I said this was the first game I played growing up. Huge nostalgia for it. Actually, the way I remember playing it back then is very similar to the way I just played it, so not a lot changed, which is weird because you don't see that very often. I think going back and like the tag team match dynamic really screwed with me, and I didn't really like it that much. Which is like if you're getting pinned, you have to play as the partner and break up the pin rather than kick out of the pin. I didn't really like that. This is tough. But I think I'm going to have to say future endeavor because I do like Raw and Royal Rumble a little bit better.
You're fired!
Okay.
Now, what about you, Georgie? Play it forever or future endeavor?
Going into this game, looking at the screenshots, knowing what kind of game this was going to be, I was very excited. But this just lacks some of the features that I was kind of expecting and hoping to have, that I guess were implemented in later versions of this game. So the roster's great. The gameplay is okay. The roster's great. Gameplay is okay. I like the fact that there's a split roster between two games. I think it's cool. It's like an interesting little factor. I think I'm going to future endeavor this one.
You're fired!
Double fuge. Now, this is not the last time we're going to be playing this game, that means, because it will come up on an episode of Future Endeavored in the future.
All right, John, I think it's time now for us to hop on over to that wonderful tournament segment that we like to have every single week here. It's time for Clash at the Feast. All right, John. We're settling up on a couple of weeks here. So we had to do I can't believe I'm saying this. You challenged me because we had to settle up for last week's episode. So you challenged me to WrestleMania, the arcade game, to decide March.
How'd that go?
It may go down in history as the shortest Clash at the Feast of all time. I don't even remember who I picked, but Johnny Clash was Shawn Michaels, and then he was Bret Hart, and then he was Shawn Michaels again?
No, so first match, I was Shawn Michaels, you were The Undertaker, and I wiped the floor with you. Second match, I chose my second favorite of the game, Razor Ramon. You chose Bam Bam Bigelow. I wiped the floor with you. And then we did a little... I felt bad. So I gave you a third one.
Oh, God.
You picked Yokozuna, I picked Bret Hart, and you won. Whatever. But you're a winner who took March and who is now at 3 wins on the year to your 5. Johnny Clash, play my damn music.
Not everything's made to last. This is my life. This is my life. And this is my time. This is where I shine.
Now, all right. To check out this week's Clash at the Feast, head on over to youtube.com/GameMarks Podcast, where we played WWF Super WrestleMania, and see who took the first week of April.
All right, John. I mean, I think we're coming down to the wire here. Is there anything else that we wanna touch on? I guess we should probably let people know what we're playing next week, right? But is there any other thing that we may have done last week that was kind of cool?
So you still have, if you're listening to this on Monday, you still have a few days left to purchase FWF Live, where me and George, and we already said it, new friend of the show, Shane Douglas, the franchise, took on Top Shelf Troy Nelson and Nick Stapp of Off the Hop Rope. If that doesn't sell you, the damn micro brawler should. Pick it up at patreon.com/FWF Live. It is well worth it. Guys, we had so much fun watching. We had so much fun participating, and we think you will all really enjoy it if you haven't already. Now, Georgia boy, what game are we playing next week? Because I'm ready to run away with April.
All right, so usually this is the part John throws it to me. I tell everybody what we're playing next week, and that's worked out really great for the last year plus. But we're running into a scheduling conflict right now. So what I'm going to say is that next week, tentatively, we're going to have a surprise run-in on the podcast. We're going to have a guest next week. But this person is also insanely busy, so I don't want to announce everything and then get their hopes up.
Okay.
And then have it not happen. So we're going to say that next week is going to be a very special episode with a very special guest. But if it's not next week's episode, it'll be the following week's episode. So next week, we're going to be doing something. Follow us on social media for an update on that. But I can't in good conscience say exactly what's going to happen next week.
We could say we'll know by like Tuesday.
Yes.
So, yeah. Sometimes this happens. We'll have a game on standby just in case.
Yes. If we're not able to do what we want to do next week, I'm just going to make Johnny play another Fire Pro game.
Just going to make me read the roster. All right. Take us home, George.
Yep. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us this week on the Game Marks podcast. Please check out our merchandise at GameMarksPod.com/shop and join us on our Patreon at Patreon.com/GameMarksPod. It is the best way besides listening to support the podcast. And be sure to follow us on all forms of social media at GameMarksPod. Leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to wherever great podcasts can be found. Wear your mask, wash your hands, get vaccinated, social distance, do all those things that make us safe so that we can get back to some normalcy. John, I am going to be riding the high of FWF Live for weeks and weeks to come. Say goodnight.
Game over. Marks.
Game Marks podcast, put them on the radar. Playing rare games, Sega Saturn, no Game Shark. Johnny and George work hard and they play hard. Future endeavor games and put them in the graveyard. From the deep dive to the clash at the feast. How can I get more? That's question of the week. Follow on Twitch, there's nothing that they won't play. Game Marks podcast every single Monday.
Hi everyone, this is David C. Anderson, the commissioner of the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, and I'm inviting you to check out my brand new podcast, Chat 'em Up. Each week I bring an infotaining look at all of the recent happenings, along with stories, conversations with guests, and more. The podcast can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, or wherever fine podcasts are found. New episodes of Chat 'em Up drop every Monday. Make sure you're following the podcast across social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Chat 'em Up Podcast. I'll chat with you soon.